Well, good afternoon, everybody. Episode 171 of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Topic for today, how to view your business profit and what to actually do with it, with Craig Minter. How you doing, Craig?
Yeah, I'm very well, Darren. Yourself?
Very well. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, no, excited to have a chat and always happy to share little tidbits with the people out there.
Oh, fantastic. And it's going to be a fun one. So for everybody out there, Craig is a new age CFO who takes a very different approach to helping business owners make sense of their numbers. Yes, he's a certified practicing accountant. He's worked in and with health, private sector, and not-for-profit organizations in Australia and abroad for over 20 years. He's managed the financial direction of startups through to nationally recognized organizations with turnovers of over 200 million. He's spent his life living in spreadsheets, demystifying numbers for those he works with. But the difference is that Craig is a mastery level profit first professional, leveraging business owners' human behavior and unique money code with money archetypes to unlock the shackles many face around money, ultimately ensuring business owners feel safe and secure with money and enabling them to grow their business through focusing on their zone of genius. Man, that sounds great. Money archetypes and all this magical stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff, and it's not the typical accountant and a background that a lot of people follow. So I love that sort of stuff.
I've actually done I've had a few other guests that spoken a little bit about money archetypes. It's going to be interesting to see where you come across and how that all fits in with what I've learned so far, which is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, cool. More than happy to share and give a perspective on how we utilize it and leverage it at the end of the day.
But tell us a bit about your story. I mean, how did you fall into this line of work? What do you love about what you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Darren. It's a long and varied sort of little path to come to the sort of consulting and financial consulting that I do this day. But, I did follow the typical, come into accounting way of the world. So I became an accountant straight out of uni and working in many different large organizations, you sort of management accountant, finance managers and these sorts of things. And, would always be working and talking numbers and have people come in going, I've got all this money. What do I do about it? And I'd be like, okay, put the financials, put the spreadsheets aside. Let me worry about that. Yep. What's your problem? What do you want to do? Where do we want to get to? And it's all about having the conversations, having the relationships and those sorts of things. And, through many years worked in, a number of the organizations that you mentioned there before and, enjoyed it, but also then got to a point of living in a lot of big corporate, just wanting to have more of an impact and, be more at the coalface and, wanted to do something a little bit differently. So I got out of that world for a while and decided to go a little bit left field and started my own businesses around meditation and mindfulness. So I went a little bit left field there and, had a myriad of experiences with that startup, learn a bunch of lessons and, it at a point where we got a lot of traction and a lot of social traction. People were helping people with tinnitus and ear condition where people have buzzing in their ears and the like. But at the end of the day, didn't produce the money that we were hoping to as well. So, the rejig was then learn a lot in startup, a lot about growing and awareness and all those things. Background in financial accounting and those sorts of things, marry these together and sort of went, hey, we can start to help people with a different sort of perspective on how to manage finances. And, and then you touched upon the journey then took me into two worlds of one around profit first being a behavioral approach to managing the money within business. And then also money mindset, money archetypes, money mind growth. And I was just like, wow, these two things just both resonated with me so much. And I was like, okay, cool. This is taking things to a whole different level with being able to help people sort of really get in tune with themselves, what their goals are, how they behave and how they work. And, not needing to be a maths genius or a financial genius to know how they need to run their business financially. And so, that's basically been the process to come to where I am and what I do today.
And I love that, because obviously your background in and your interest in mindfulness and meditation is kind of grounded in self-awareness and helping other people understand what it is they want to achieve with their money. It's not just about making money for money's sake. So it's a beautiful marriage between, you know, what are we going to do with this money in line with what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. It is that whole purpose. So at the end of the day, if anybody, we all started businesses for a reason, and we sometimes often quickly get away from that once we get into all the things you've got to do as your business owner. But it is, very much having that at the heart of, well, at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? And okay, cool. Now we can sort of work through that and reverse engineer. Well, what do we actually need financially for a business to do that? Yep. And just make sure that there's alignment with, that we're working in, what feels right for us as well, rather than, we're drawn off to do this or, all these sorts of things. We can sort of pull that all together.
Yeah, because the business can get to a point where it starts to run you around and take control of your life. And then you think to yourself after so many years, well, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. Well, what do I do it for? At the end of the day, whether it's the time, whether it's the money, whether it's whatever it is, well, has that actually really happened? And has it actually worked for me to be the vehicle that I want it to be, to do whatever I want to do, whether that's outside the business or what people might use their business for? If it's, aligned very closely to their passion, then cool, you can do a lot of stuff through it. But also for a lot of people, it's the business is a vehicle to be able to create a certain lifestyle to do other things. Definitely. So, being able to marry that all together is pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Wow, good stuff. So then when we talk about business profit, I mean, what does that mean to you? And what do you talk about with your clients when you start talking about business profit? Because obviously, from a generic terms, it means business profit, but obviously it's got to be a very different interpretation, I think.
It's an interesting point, because there's a couple of different angles that it come from. And, from a simplistic idea, business profit, when there is some there, it means freedom, it means lifestyle, it means choices at the end of the day. And looking at it from that perspective, it's one angle that we kind of look at it. What a lot of people find when they look at profit, it's that kind of afterthought notion. It's like, hey, cool, we're off doing all this activity in our businesses, and we're producing revenue. And, but then like, oh, we've got to spend all this money. We spend all this money, and then, if people choose to look at their financial reports, the profit's kind of what happens, whatever is the leftover at the end of that as well. And, even if there's profit sitting there on a report, a lot of people go, yeah, well, that's profit, but where's the cash? Where's the cash of that? Like, and they'll speak to their trustee or accountant, and say, oh, you've already spent that, and that's already gone here, gone there, and all the rest of it. And for us, and the way that we look at it is, well, ultimately profit is cash in the bank. And that's the way we set things up with people. And we have this prioritization of profit so that we can have those things. It's the freedom, the lifestyle, simplicity around that. And so we make sure that we're setting up multiple buckets of money and the like, to have different bank accounts and the like. And one of those in the priority is, let's put money aside to ultimately put aside to do what we want to do and the vehicle that we want it to be. And that's, so when I talk about profit, that's kind of the couple of little pieces of the puzzle that we're sort of pulling together to be able to, ultimately, it's like being an investor in your own business. We are all shareholders as a business owner. And, if we go invest our hard-earned money in shares of a BHP or a Telstra, we want to get the dividends from that. And the dividends of that is coming from their profit and their profit account. So we need to be able to do the same in our own business so that can nourish us in what we need to do as well. And so it enlivens us to keep doing what we're doing, rather than getting a bit, oh, this business isn't really doing what it needs to do for me, and those types of things. So that's kind of
really good point.
Yeah, that's kind of what profit means to me. It is basically the cash that we're able to utilize to do what we want to do and give us all those things that I touched upon there. And ultimately, for me, it's the choices. It enables us to have choice in our life.
Yeah, and it's the proactive management of profit rather than the reactive management of profit.
100%. Yeah, 100%, because it is quite often that notion of, I do plenty of talks and the like, and say, well, how often do you look at your financial reports? And you say once a year, and everyone's got their hands up, and you go once a quarter.
I don't even understand them. I said,
100%.
I have to talk to the accountant. So what does all this mean?
Once a week, and 100%. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't know it, and therefore I don't look at them.
Yeah.
But then you say, well, how often do you look at your bank account? And everybody's still got their hand up daily, usually. And it's like, so from a human behavior perspective, why don't we leverage that? And if you're looking at your bank accounts every day, if you're looking at one big bucket of money, it makes no sense. But if you're sitting there saying, hey, cool, I've got a profit account here, I've got a tax account over here, I've got an owner's pay account here, and ultimately I've got to run the business off the rest of the money that's left over, because I know profit's there, I know the government's looked after, no matter how much I don't like it, but the reality is, it's a reality. Cool, it's put aside. It's like, okay, cool, based on however much money I've got coming in, I've got to operate it off this. Otherwise, I really don't have a sustainable business. And then if I don't, then I can see that far clearer and go, holy crap, I need to do something about this. What have I got to do? Have I got to spend less, make more money, get better margin, look at my pricing, all these things that then come off that I can do by looking at my bank accounts, which I'm looking at every day anyway. Right. And that can tell me the story of my business and my profitability, more so than, people that don't understand financial reports, don't look at them often enough, and all these sorts of things. And so that's our approach, and that's why we do look at things quite differently, because it's really centered around what's very natural for people to do, because they're already doing that.
It's it makes sense to kind of compartmentalize things, and then that allows you to really have better indicators on exactly what's going on day to day. You can make judgments and decisions much faster and much more accurately when you know exactly what's going on. Yeah. Otherwise, you've got to wait for the tax return or the the BAS or whatever, and by then you might be behind the eight ball.
100%. You've already gone off and made 10 other decisions that will impact the finances, and not knowing what that actually really means. And it does sort of help you have the finger on the pulse, again, from that cash perspective, which we all know, cash is the lifeblood of businesses. And it's why most businesses that, everyone knows the percentages, businesses fail. And it's usually because of a cash flow issue and a cash flow challenge. So having that finger on the pulse of that is, very powerful.
I mean, in your experience, when you've started to speak to a lot of these people around this type of thing, and just generally, I suppose, speaking to people about finance, what percentage of people roughly do you think manage their money in that way? And what percentage of people just do what everybody else does and says, that's my one bank account, leave it up to the accountant, and that's the end of that?
Yeah, unfortunately, at the moment, it's a very high percentage in the, I just run the way I'm running and haven't put a whole lot of forethought into it. And, that's been my experience. I think these more and more people, profit first as a concept, as a methodology and a notion is becoming more and more well known around. There's more and more people like myself that are profit first professionals sharing the word, spreading the word around, looking at things a little bit differently and the like. But most people know that when they start in business, they get told, go get an accountant. And that's cool. That's awesome. If you get a good one, awesome. You might get a proactive one that does certain things, but unfortunately, majority of accountants are hey, cool, we've got to do the taxes, we've got to do the compliance, we've got to do all the statutory stuff, which that needs to be done. Don't get me wrong. That's very important to do as well. But also a lot of accountants don't have the time or the capacity to then be able to add that value. It's also not that they don't want to. It's just there is a lot of compliance and those sorts of things and the like. And then so having either an accountant or even people like myself, I don't do tax accounting, for example. It's, hey, cool, let's build a financial team around small business owners to say, cool, yes, you've got to have the accountant that does the tax compliance. It's useful to have a bookkeeper who will look after the transactions. And then, people like myself add the layer of value on there as to understanding the day-to-day management of the cash flow and the day-to-day decision-making, and again, leveraging how to actually go about that. And it's something that quite often small businesses don't do because they worry about the expense, whereas though the reality is it's more of an investment. And that's that component of, at the end of the day, we want to make profitable investments in our business for all our decision making. So the percentages It's I would say shifting even in the time that I've been doing this. I've been doing this 4 or 5 years now, and there's more and more people that have come across either Profit First or even people have listened to Barefoot Investor on the personal side of life. It's a very similar concept, and so they may have tried to implement something like Barefoot Investor in their personal. They might have put one bank aside for the tax, which is awesome. It's a great start. But what I tend to find, if in doubt, open another bank account, open one for different purposes. And this is all about, as we know in life, once we give something a purpose, if I've got a purpose to live longer because I want to see my great grandkids in 50 years time grow up and all the rest of it, I'm going to live longer. There's so much science out there around it. So, give our money a purpose. Every bit of money that comes into a business, let's give that a purpose. Well, the purpose of that is to cover the tax obligations. The purpose for this is to build our staff. You can work out different things, and it's all about this purpose-driven approach to managing your money.
I love it. I remember I read many years ago, and I've probably reread it, The Richest Man in Babylon. Have you read that book?
Yeah, 100%.
Such a great book. It's similar to what you're saying, nowhere near as, probably complex, but the theory was probably start thinking that way. Pay yourself first.
100%. I'd read The Richest Man in Babylon before I came across Profit First. And then as soon as I started reading the book Profit First, I was like, this is Richest Man in Babylon for the new age business owner.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. It's a great concept, great philosophy, and highly recommend any of those books if people want to sort of start to turn the cogs around, a bit more detail about what we're talking here today.
I love it. Fascinating. So tell us more about this money code and the money archetypes, and what's all this about?
Yeah, so that's another way of leveraging natural human behaviors. And, I came across, sacred money archetypes from a fellow networking person, Kathleen, and she started talking about money mindset. And I sort of went, oh, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. So, I learn about it, learn about my own unique money archetypes and the impacts that they have on me. And basically, at that point in time, it did some amazing stuff for me in a personal sense. I wrote a recent blog about it. Me and my wife, we had very different, money mindsets and the like. And so it gave us a whole new language to be able to talk to each other about money. Yeah. I'm often in a what we call a maverick sort of way, just carefree, happy to take risks, and my wife's at the other end of the scale is conservative, accumulate money. And so we had this sort of common language that we could sort of talk to, and it changed, home life whenever we were talking about money, which was brilliant. But, I'd parked it there. It solved a need at the time, and I hadn't sort of leveraged it or transitioned into my business life until, I call COVID 1.0 came around, and I was deep in clients, in a cash flow forecast tool that we've created for around Profit First, and what we're daily talking in about all these things. And there was just so much money mindset and challenges that people were having. We were talking a whole lot about money mindset. And so then it's like, ooh, those learnings started to reverberate in the back of my mind. And so I sort of delved back into that world of money archetypes. And it is this notion of that within all of this, these, certain influences that we have on us in how we think about money, how we operate, what drives us, what challenges we've got, and our own unique mix of those will determine, how we do a lot of things and how we make decisions in life and in business. And, so then to start to learn and understand that and talk with clients then about, understanding what their money codes were, and, marry that in together with, say, something like Profit First. It just gives you a great holistic picture as to, I touched upon different bank accounts, for example, and the practical sense of that is, somebody like me being a maverick, it's, useful to have a safety net account. So build up a safety net account so that all of a sudden it's like, it's okay if you can be, comfortable with risk and do a few things, but chip away and make sure you've got the safety and security there to do that. You've got people that are what would be classed as an alchemist, very creative with money and, very altruistic. You can really
experimental and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, correct. And you can really nourish those people by, having money put aside for, a giving or a gift or a type of account where they can feel their very altruistic nature, being able to give back and all these sorts of things. And so by marrying the two and getting to know people's, since their money DNA, we can have really good conversations to know, well, I totally understand you. I know where you're at, and I really get the picture of, what's the inner desires to be able to achieve what I want to achieve. And so, even learning that from your own aspect, it's like, okay, cool. You start to look at some of the decisions you've made a little bit differently. And it's like, okay, I'm very conscious that I've got my Maverick over here. I've got my Alchemist here. And I've got that. And it's like, okay, I can see why I'm pulled towards that, but I've got to acknowledge, I've got to be conscious of the other areas I need to nourish as well within that.
Right. I think that's absolutely fascinating because, thinking about, particularly if you're in a relationship or you're married, it's a co-journey. You're going through life together, you're making decisions together. So a lot of the time, if there are two archetypes that are opposing, it can cause trouble. Yeah. But if you can really understand that, and then the more conservative person can say, all right, let's do a deal. Here's your account for your Maverick work, and here's my account for my safety net. You can do whatever you want with that account, and as long as we have this one, we're all good. So that just something as simple as that can make all the difference.
100%. There's very practical applications to that. And, I'll give the example in the blog I touched on there before. Is we recently sold an investment property, and it was that notion where it's like, cool, working through that process. I love the numbers, get it out on the whiteboard and go, hey, cool, here's all the numbers, all that sort of stuff that we can look through. And here's what we would do with, the money we make off this. It's like, okay, cool. Here's where we can put money aside to cover off. Hey, cool, make sure we've got the safety net, make sure we've got that, and do exactly what you just talked about there. It's like, okay, cool. But then we've got this other money from that we can have to, do the investment, do the component, or the risk, the travel or the experiences, because that nurtures, other parts of our money codes. And and to be able to then sit back and say, okay, there's the picture, and I've thought of you about how we can make sure, that we're both getting, what would be, and does that do those numbers stack up to go, is it worthwhile selling that? Because the opportunity cost of, if we kept it, then blah, 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 these opportunities. And then you can paint those pictures and be very aware of what each other is being conscious of with the thought processes that is going around that. So
fascinating that this was never around years and years ago. It's, people just kind of went through this and thought about money and made strange decisions. And all it was is something as simple as really understanding your behavior around money.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I say. It's why I love doing what I do, because it is just bringing back things into it. At the end of the day, as human beings, all we truly want to be is feel safe and secure. Yep. And a lot of decisions we make, and again, we all come with our different personalities and money personalities and whatever they are, but we all just want to be able to, feel safe and secure, be happy, live our lives and do what you need to do. And so by knowing some of these things, we can actually set things up to help achieve that goal and that purpose at the end of the day. Because we all often get caught up in the life and the world and all these sorts of things, but the more we can simplify it and bring it back to, the simplicity and the core ideals of what that is, it's, we're all going to be better off. And, when we're running businesses, it's, they can be complex beasts at times, but you break things down to some of the key core fundamentals of that and how we actually manage that. It's, it has a massive impact on people.
Absolutely. And is that how you worked? Like, would you always try and sit down with everybody and understand them first before, making other decisions or putting other strategies together?
100%. Yeah, it's all about, at the end of the day, it's that, number one, where are you at now? What are you trying to achieve? What's the purpose, as we alluded to at the very start of the conversation? And yes, anyone that I work with these days, we're doing the the money archetype sort of quizzes to understand what the profile is and work out what's going to really nourish them and those types of things. And then it's all very much about having a personalized, tailored sort of way of sitting there going, well, if here's the goal, here's the targets, and here's what we're trying to achieve, let's make sure that we're nourishing, conscious of, hey, cool, what's the family picture? What's the business picture? And, if there's business partnerships, we're making sure we're covering off the different relationships within that, the business ownership structure and the like, to then be able to go, well, okay, cool. Then we can chart the path around that.
Definitely, because that all leads into risk tolerance and all that kind of stuff.
100%. Yeah, spot on.
Okay, fantastic. And so tell us a bit more about how you actually work. Do you work with individuals, corporates? Do you work with any particular target market?
Yeah, basically, we work with, normal small businesses and the like. It's usually those businesses that, they've been in operation for a while. They've got to a certain level where they're sitting there going, they've done very well to get to a level where you've got a few staff and the like, and then they've hit a point where they hit that sort of plateau park and they're like, hang on a second, we're making more revenue and we're doing all these things, but they're not seeing the results as cash in their pocket, or they're more stressed, they're pressured, and all these sorts of things. And that's where leveraging some of the things that we've talked about here, it's very much that plan of putting that all in place to try to simplify that, understand where they're at, and help them build what we call is pretty much profit and people plans, to be able to navigate that, to make sure that we're achieving the goals. And so, we work with a myriad of types of businesses, but we do have a lot in the health and wellness space. It's probably some of that mindfulness, the background. I've worked in, large health organizations in the past, and I love being fit and healthy. So we talk about it as being, that kind of space, all these businesses that, really aim to be healthy, sustainable, forward-thinking types of businesses. And that's who we work with. From the business sense, the money mindset stuff, that can 100% be done with individuals. Predominantly, we do it with business owners to leverage, what the vehicle of their business can be. But we're always happy to put people across those things as well from a personal sense.
Awesome. And do you help people do you guide them in making investment decisions, or is it more just the strategy of setting up their financial plan in a way?
Yeah, it's more so on the business front, so to speak. It's not sort of necessarily stepping into the investing sense, so to speak. What we always talk about at the end of the day is, again, the business is a vehicle for you to be able to do what you want to do and how you want to do it, and to help you basically get more cash into your life using a business vehicle. And then, we're not the experts. We're quite happy with how we invest and what the plan is, from our own personal side, because obviously got to be certain comfort with financials and those sorts of things. But we also do love to collaborate in both the business sense and the personal sense, where we sit there and go, okay, cool, we've created this kind of money. Here's the people that we know, like, and trust around, whether it's investing and whatever the experience might be, and the like there. So we do sort of have those partnerships. Again, we don't want to be the expert in everything. We sort of stick to the profitability, cash flow, profit plans, people plans, money mindset kind of area. And by them people knowing that, it usually helps them when they do look at some of the other investment ideas. They put it through a different lens, which usually helps them make decisions that are going to help them lead to where they want to go.
Gotcha. And I can imagine that maybe initially when you work with a business, you're there more frequently, and later on it's more of just the frequency reduces. Is that right? Or is there a point 100%. Where you never have to be there at all? Or?
Yeah, 100%. We get in, we do a heavy lift over a sort of intensive period, get people up and running, get them comfortable with all these things. And again, we're very much of that belief of, teach somebody to fish, to catch the fish, and then they can go off and do that. Then there's obviously certain ways that if people still want to have those touch points, check-ins, we've got a bunch of proprietary tools that we use just to keep people ticking over. And so we have ways of just keeping in touch. And what we've found over the years is that we go in, we do the heavy lift, we have, the touch points, we stay in touch and people are using similar tools, and then something will happen. There'll be a life event or a business event or something. And then they're like, okay, cool. We need to jump back in. How would we position this? Right. Talk through some of that mindset stuff and the behavioral part, or how would we set this up? Bringing all that back together. Cool. Here's maybe another little short burst of activity, and that's cool. Get you set up again. Awesome. Off we go. So we're very much about you don't need to be with us, on the huge, packages forever.
It's not a life sentence.
Yeah, 100%. But what we do find is people love to hang around us because, the way we work, what we love to do. And we the people we work with, again, we only work with people that are a right fit as well. And, we have those conversations and we know what the mindset is of people, and, we have a great fit with our people. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you certainly, I can see that you really enjoy what you do, and, obviously enjoy helping people put all this stuff together, which is fantastic.
Yeah, 100%. It's very rewarding when, you see people, the idea drops and it's like, yeah, I've got this and I can see why this is. And I'll give you an example. I just on a call, I did a training session the other day, and somebody just jumped on for a 15-minute chat around, how they might set up something or other. And I just went, here's two bank accounts based upon your profile that I'd maybe consider. And he's just like, that's so cool. And, 15-minute chat. And I was just like, yeah, that makes total sense to me now. I've always had this thought in the back of my mind. Well, here's why the thought was in the back of your mind, and here's a practical implementation of that for you. Away it goes to be able to go, hey, cool, I know what he's going to be doing. And that was part of what I touched on before, set up a giving account, or make a difference account. It's a certain amount of money that comes into his life will go into a make a difference account, nice. Which, is very nourishing for somebody that really hates that altruistic nature.
Yep, I love it. It's a fascinating field, really.
Yeah,
fascinating.
It is.
Now, I love giving my listeners and my viewers a bit of a story or a bit of a case study to really kind of summarize everything you've been speaking about. So I was wondering if you have a little example of when you might have started working with a business, what stage they're at, and how you changed their whole outlook and their whole result working with you.
Yeah, cool. You look up there,
sure, there's plenty.
Client list up. Yeah, your client list up there, and it's like, okay, which one of these cool ones can I talk about? But there is one that sort of, it sticks in my mind, family, actually a trades-based business, family business. And, they were introduced me from a networking partner who, had been working with these guys, and they sort of said, we're doing really well in business, but, we're profitable, but we get to the end of each month and there's no cash in the bank. And, my networking partner said, that's something you can help with, isn't it? I said, yeah, sure can. 100%. So we jumped on a call. They'd never heard of, profit first, buckets of money and all these sorts of things. And, just gave the high level summary of what that is, how we'd go about it. And they were like, yeah, cool. That sounds interesting. And I think that would work really well for us. And, it was that process whereby, we got in, we did the heavy lift, and it is the classic example of what he's talked about. We changed the framing on how they were looking at different things within their business and the money and the bank accounts. And we opened up a bunch of bank accounts to be able to get them going. And, they did a bunch of work themselves. They worked through some cool stuff. They looked at their business different, and, we're actually holding their hands along that way. Changed a massive around, and, they'd come to a point where you look at the financial results from, obviously can't share the specifics and details of that, but the cash position of them, they come around, COVID 1.0 hits, a lot of their competitors are struggling. They've got a bucket load of cash sitting in their account, being able to take advantage of opportunities where, some of the stock that they need to do what they do is, got trapped on shipping containers. So they were able to purchase more than some of their competitors because they had more cash available, so that when all that did come through, they had far more stock than anybody else. So therefore, then they were able to, leverage that opportunity while other people were kind of struggling. So you look at what their year on, they've been working with us for about three odd years now, and you look at the bottom line, position, and it's multiple on multiple,
Wow, I love that.
each year after year. And now they've got they always had a 4 or 5 year plan to be able to achieve a pretty cool thing and operate the business in a certain way and do some cool family stuff. Got a young family and the like, and they're well on the way to that. They can see the path, they see the plan, and we've opened up multiple bank accounts with them once they've gone, okay, cool, we want to do this now, and it's a purpose. Okay, cool. Actually, let's look at some extra accounts for these sorts of things.
Love it.
Being able to support people through that, it's life changing. On the chat, and she's like, our life would have been very different. Button heads around money, around business stuff, and all the rest of it, and they're just like, it's just changed their life. Not even talking about the money side of things and the business side of things. It's the relationships they now have. That's where
because they trust each other, because they understand each other.
Yeah, and there's not a stress point around money, which is often a big challenge. So it's one of my favorite ones.
I love that. And like listening to you, it's fascinating, because I suppose, or I'm assuming, that when people go through this journey, they start off just trying to understand how they can manage their money and their finances better. But then through this journey, they start to realize how they can maybe change their whole business.
Yes.
Because
100%.
They start working in a different way, because they start thinking in a different way. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I've got that over there. Maybe I can actually do that. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I can bring on this. And probably their whole business starts to change as well in a lot of cases.
100%. Yeah, it's so true. And it's because it's kind of this, you're putting in boundaries and parameters around things that at the end of the day, people say, I'm not creative, I can't come up with new ideas and all the rest of it. But when you've been stuck in a house and it's raining every day and the kids are going crazy out there, you come up with ideas to be able to come up with amazing games and all the rest of it.
That's right.
And, when it comes to finances in our business, if you start to, rather than having a big bucket of money, we have some smaller buckets of money, and you go to people, well, you need to operate your business off this now. People get very creative. It's like, okay, do I need to price different? Do I offer different services? How do we actually deliver on this? And all of a sudden, what you just said there, Darren, it's that part of looking at things differently. And so while we're talking in that financial space, it actually helps people think outside of the box, outside of the square, to then go, okay, cool. And it's all tied back to, well, that notion of, is there a return on investment, or do I really need to spend that money? And it's okay to spend money as long as we're very conscious of the return on investment, that if I'm going to spend out of this, then it's got to achieve this.
That's right.
And it gets people in that profitability mindset in a different way than, what's your margin and what are the hours costs, and this sort of really micro idea,
generic stuff.
That a lot of people, when they start in business, that's kind of what they're told, or what they're led to believe is what you kind of need to know to know your numbers. And we sort of, and so it is that very creative, inspired way to be able to operate.
I love it too, because you get more creative when you understand the details and you understand the parameters that you're working with. Then you can start making more creative decisions. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so true.
Absolutely. Well done, Craig. Well, I mean, I love that kind of stuff. We could go on forever.
Yeah, we probably could, and don't get me going, otherwise I will talk forever.
But I'd love for you to be able to tell everybody how we can find you and work with you if they want to.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, I appreciate the offer to share details out, but we're in the process of a whole business name change, rebrand, and all the rest of it. So I won't give out any of the websites and email addresses, but find me on LinkedIn, Craig Mentor on LinkedIn. There, you'll see this ugly mug, and connect with me there, and more than happy to have a chat with anybody around the money archetypes, the profit first stuff. You can jump on and we can get you doing the quiz to give you some insights straight up. That's, there's all little cool things you can do there. And happy to have a conversation with anyone to help them along and share some of this, how that can impact them and their lives.
Fantastic. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, Craig. Really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I enjoyed being on the call.
And I always like to ask my guests to leave us with their final words. So any final philosophies around money or thoughts around money or business that you want to give?
Yeah, I think the final thought and philosophy is it doesn't need to be overwhelming, doesn't need to be daunting. Yep. Have a look within and try to simplify things. And this notion idea of putting profit first, being very conscious that profitability shouldn't be an afterthought. That's why we got into business in the first place. And there's ways that we can actually do that. And I'd encourage anybody sort of watching or listening today, you can go out today and open one new bank account, call it profit, sit it over there, transfer 1% of any money that comes into your business into that profit account. And you will have started that notion and that shift in the mindset, and sort of starting to leverage some of that behavioral approach. So recommend doing that.
Love it. And on that, it sounds like it's really about habits. It's forming good habits. Once you start to form those good habits, everything just takes care of itself.
So true. Yeah, very, very true.
Love it. Well, Craig, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody out there, I hope you really enjoyed that as much as I did. And we'll see you very, very soon for another episode. So, Craig, thank you again. And
thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And everybody, enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.